The security footage arrived in my email at 9:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, sent by my friend Keisha, who worked in building management downtown. "Girl, I think you need to see this," her message read, followed by a timestamp from the previous evening showing my husband Marcus entering the office building's parking garage with a woman who definitely wasn't me. My name is Denise Washington, and for 12 years, I'd been married to Marcus Washington, a senior project manager at Henderson and Associates, one of Atlanta's most prestigious marketing firms. While he climbed the corporate ladder, I'd been building my own career as a strategic communications consultant, working with nonprofits and small businesses that couldn't afford big agency prices. What Marcus didn't know was that his workplace affair with his assistant was being documented by building security cameras, witnessed by my professional network, and observed by someone who understood exactly how corporate hierarchies worked. His after-hours strategy sessions were about to become the foundation for my own strategic career advancement. Marcus thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job, while I remained focused on my smaller-scale consulting work. What he was about to discover was that some wives don't just catch their husbands cheating, they use that information to systematically dismantle their careers while building something bigger than anything the cheater ever imagined. Picture this: a brick colonial in Decatur where Marcus and I had built what everyone considered the ideal Black professional marriage. He'd leave each morning in his tailored suits, driving his BMW to Henderson and Associates' Buckhead office, while I worked from our converted basement office, managing campaigns for community organizations and small businesses across Metro Atlanta. My consulting work focused on organizations that needed strategic communications but couldn't afford big agency retainers. I'd help churches launch community programs, assist small businesses with crisis management, and work with activist groups on public relations campaigns that required both creativity and cultural competency. "Mrs. Patterson, the media strategy we're implementing for your daycare's expansion should generate community support while addressing any zoning concerns proactively." I'd explain to clients who trusted me to navigate complex situations with limited budgets but unlimited passion for their missions. I'd built a reputation for turning challenges into opportunities, though I'd never imagined needing to apply those skills to my own marriage. Marcus's career at Henderson and Associates had been everything we'd planned when we'd first married. He'd started as an account coordinator and worked his way up to senior project manager, handling campaigns for major corporations that trusted Henderson with million-dollar advertising budgets. "The Samsung campaign is really taking off," Marcus would tell me over dinner, describing client presentations and strategy meetings that kept him at the office until 9 or 10 p.m. several nights each week. "Henderson is positioning me for the creative director role that's opening up next quarter." Those late nights had become more frequent over the past 6 months, always explained by client demands and deadline pressures that required all hands on deck for campaigns that seemed to require Marcus's personal attention more than anyone else's. But here's the thing about being a strategic communications consultant. You develop instincts about when narratives don't align with observable evidence. When someone's behavior patterns change dramatically while their explanations remain consistently vague, you start applying professional skepticism to personal situations. I'd started paying closer attention to Henderson and Associates' public campaigns and client announcements, cross-referencing Marcus's reported project timelines with the agency's actual work output. What I discovered was that many of his urgent client meetings didn't correspond with any publicly documented campaign activities. The Samsung campaign he'd been discussing for months had actually wrapped up 6 weeks earlier, according to Henderson's own case study publications. The high-pressure deadlines that required his evening presence weren't reflected in any client work that I could verify through industry publications or social media coverage. That's when Keisha's email arrived with security footage that explained exactly what Marcus had been doing during those late-night strategy sessions that had nothing to do with client work and everything to do with after-hours activities that violated both his marriage vows and his company's professional conduct policies. The woman in the parking garage footage was Jasmine Collins, Marcus's administrative assistant, someone I'd met at company holiday parties and who'd always been professionally friendly while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Apparently, those boundaries had shifted significantly during the past 6 months of Marcus's mysterious overtime schedule. Marcus thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job, while I remained focused on my nonprofit consulting work. What he didn't understand was that his workplace infidelity had just provided a strategic communications specialist with the perfect opportunity to demonstrate what happened when you underestimated someone who understood exactly how to turn professional scandals into career opportunities. The security footage was just the beginning of what became the most comprehensive corporate intelligence gathering operation of my career. If Marcus was conducting his affair at Henderson and Associates, I needed to understand exactly how that workplace dynamic was affecting his professional relationships and potentially creating opportunities for someone with superior strategic thinking. I started with Henderson and Associates' corporate structure, using the same research techniques I employed for clients who needed to understand organizational dynamics before launching public relations campaigns. LinkedIn profiles, corporate announcements, industry publications, everything that revealed how the agency operated and who held decision-making authority. What I discovered was that Henderson and Associates was facing significant challenges that Marcus had never mentioned during his detailed reports about company success and his own advancement opportunities. 3 major clients had ended their contracts in the past year, 2 senior partners had left to start competing firms, and the agency was actively seeking new leadership to stabilize operations. The creative director position that Marcus claimed to be pursuing was actually being advertised externally, because Henderson's leadership had determined that their internal candidates lacked the strategic vision necessary to rebuild the agency's reputation and client base. But the most interesting discovery was that Henderson and Associates had recently announced a new focus on culturally competent communications and community-centered marketing strategies, exactly the expertise I'd been developing through 8 years of nonprofit consulting and small business strategic communications work. Using my professional network, I began gathering intelligence about Henderson's internal culture, client challenges, and strategic needs. What I learned was that Marcus's affair with Jasmine wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a professional liability that could destroy his career if it became known to agency leadership who were already concerned about workplace conduct and employee professionalism. Henderson is struggling with authentic community engagement, explained Tanya Williams, a former Henderson employee who'd left for a competing agency. Their campaigns keep getting criticized for lacking cultural competency, especially when they try to reach Black and Latino markets. They need someone who understands how to build genuine community relationships. That someone was sitting in a basement office in Decatur, building exactly the kind of portfolio that Henderson and Associates desperately needed, while her husband conducted affairs with colleagues during company time. I spent the next 2 weeks documenting Marcus's affair with the same thoroughness I applied to crisis management campaigns for clients facing public relations disasters. Security footage timestamps, credit card receipts from restaurants near Henderson's office, and documented patterns of behavior that proved systematic workplace misconduct. But I wasn't planning to confront Marcus or expose his affair to his colleagues. Instead, I was going to use my evidence as insurance while applying for the creative director position that he thought he was qualified for, but had never actually been considered to receive. Marcus had provided me with perfect leverage for the most strategic career move of my life, one that would demonstrate exactly what happened when you betrayed someone who understood how to turn professional scandals into personal advancement opportunities. The Henderson and Associates creative director position required exactly the kind of strategic communications expertise I'd been developing for 8 years, but with one significant advantage over other candidates. I had insider knowledge about the agency's culture, challenges, and personnel issues that no external applicant could possess. I assembled a portfolio that would have impressed any marketing professional, but designed specifically to address Henderson's documented weaknesses in community engagement and culturally competent communications. Case studies from my nonprofit work, testimonials from small business clients, and strategic frameworks that demonstrated exactly the kind of thinking Henderson needed to rebuild their reputation. The application package I submitted highlighted my success in building authentic relationships with diverse communities, creating campaigns that generated genuine engagement rather than superficial corporate messaging, and managing crisis communications that turned challenges into opportunities for organizational growth. But the most strategic element of my application wasn't what I included, it was what I omitted. No mention of my marriage to Marcus Washington, no reference to my familiarity with Henderson's internal operations, and no indication that I possessed information about workplace conduct issues that could affect agency stability. The interview request arrived within a week, along with information about Henderson's accelerated hiring timeline due to urgent strategic needs that required immediate creative director leadership. They were looking for someone who could start quickly and make immediate impact on client relationships and campaign effectiveness. The interview took place in Henderson's Buckhead conference room, the same building where Marcus conducted his affair, though the executive team had no idea they were interviewing the wife of one of their project managers who was systematically violating company policy. Ms. Washington, your portfolio demonstrates exactly the kind of community engagement expertise we need, explained Sarah Henderson, the agency's managing partner. Our clients are demanding more authentic connections with diverse markets, and your track record shows sustained success in building those relationships. Thank you, Ms. Henderson. I've noticed that many agencies struggle with authentic community engagement because they approach it as a marketing tactic rather than genuine relationship building. My work focuses on understanding community needs first, then developing communication strategies that serve those needs while achieving client objectives. The presentation I delivered that afternoon demonstrated strategic thinking that addressed every weakness in Henderson's current approach, while showcasing expertise that exceeded anything their internal candidates could provide. I walked them through campaign strategies that could rebuild their reputation while attracting exactly the kind of clients they needed to stabilize operations. We'd like to make you an offer, Sarah Henderson concluded at the end of my presentation. The creative director position, starting Monday, with authority over all strategic campaigns and supervisory responsibility for project management staff that included my husband, who had no idea his wife had just been hired as his new boss while he was conducting workplace affairs that violated every aspect of professional conduct policy. I accepted Henderson's offer that afternoon, negotiating a salary that exceeded Marcus's income by 40% and securing reporting relationships that would give me direct authority over his work assignments, performance evaluations, and continued employment at the agency. Marcus thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job while I remained focused on smaller consulting clients. What he was about to discover was that his workplace misconduct had provided his wife with the perfect opportunity to become his professional superior while possessing documented evidence of his policy violations. Monday morning arrived with the kind of professional excitement I hadn't felt since starting my own consulting business 8 years earlier. I dressed in my most authoritative business attire and drove to Henderson and Associates' Buckhead office, arriving early to set up my new corner office before the staff meeting where I'd be introduced as their new creative director. Sarah Henderson had scheduled an all-hands meeting for 9:30 a.m. to introduce me to the full team and outline my strategic vision for the agency's new direction. Marcus had mentioned the meeting during breakfast, complaining about another mandatory corporate gathering that would interrupt his project schedule. "Some new creative director starting today?" He'd grumbled over coffee. "Probably another outsider who doesn't understand how things work here." Hope they don't mess up the Samsung follow-up campaign I'm developing. I'm sure they'll bring interesting perspectives to the agency, I'd replied, kissing his cheek goodbye. You might be surprised by what new leadership can accomplish. The staff meeting began with Sarah Henderson's introduction of my background, expertise, and strategic vision for Henderson and Associates' evolution into an agency that specialized in authentic community engagement and culturally competent communications. I'm pleased to introduce Denise Washington as our new creative director. Her portfolio demonstrates exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need to rebuild our client relationships and expand into markets where authentic community connections are essential. I watched Marcus's face from across the conference room as he processed hearing my name called as his new supervisor. His expression shifted through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror as he realized that his wife had just been introduced as his boss while he'd been conducting an affair with his assistant during company time. Thank you, Sarah. I'm excited to work with such a talented team to develop campaigns that serve both client objectives and community needs. My first priority will be reviewing all current projects to ensure they align with our new strategic direction. I outlined my vision for Henderson's transformation, discussing campaign strategies that would rebuild their reputation while attracting clients who valued authentic engagement over superficial corporate messaging. Marcus sat frozen in his chair, probably calculating exactly how much trouble he was in professionally and personally. I'll be meeting individually with each team member this week to discuss their current projects and identify opportunities for strategic improvement, I continued, making direct eye contact with Marcus. I believe in understanding every aspect of our operations to ensure optimal performance and professional conduct. After the general meeting, I announced that I'd be conducting one-on-one sessions with senior staff members, starting with project managers who had the most direct client contact and supervisory responsibilities. Marcus Washington, could you schedule time this afternoon to discuss your current project portfolio and strategic approaches? I'd like to understand your work style and professional priorities. Marcus nodded silently, probably trying to figure out how to navigate having his wife as his boss while maintaining his affair with his assistant, who was now also under my supervisory authority. That afternoon's meeting would be the first time in our 12-year marriage that I'd held professional authority over my husband, while possessing documented evidence of his systematic violation of workplace conduct policies. Marcus had thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job, while I remained focused on smaller consulting work. Instead, his workplace misconduct had just placed him under the professional authority of someone who understood exactly how to use corporate power structures to ensure appropriate consequences for policy violations. The one-on-one meeting with Marcus was scheduled for 3 p.m. in my new corner office, the same floor where he'd been conducting his affair, but now under the authority of someone who possessed both professional power and personal knowledge of his misconduct. Marcus entered my office with the kind of nervous energy I'd seen from clients who knew they were facing public relations crises, but weren't sure how much damage had already been done to their reputations. Denise, Miss Washington, I need to say that this situation is incredibly awkward. I had no idea you were interviewing here, and I'm not sure how to handle the professional dynamics. Marcus, let's focus on your work performance and current project portfolio. Personal relationships don't factor into professional evaluations unless they affect workplace conduct or company policy compliance. I opened the file I'd prepared containing Marcus's project history, client feedback, and performance metrics over the past year. But I also had another file, one containing security footage, timeline documentation, and evidence of workplace misconduct that violated Henderson's professional conduct policies. Your project management work has been adequate, though several clients have noted concerns about responsiveness and availability during supposed intensive work periods. I'm particularly interested in understanding your time management during evening hours when you've reported extensive client work. My client dedication has always been exceptional. I stay late because I care about delivering quality work, not because of any performance issues. Marcus, I have security footage from the building's parking garage showing your client dedication activities. Would you like to discuss how your after-hours conduct aligns with Henderson's professional standards? The silence that followed was profound. Marcus realized that his wife wasn't just his new boss. She was his new boss who possessed evidence of his affair and had the professional authority to act on that information. Denise, please. We need to separate personal issues from professional responsibilities. Whatever problems we have in our marriage shouldn't affect my job. Marcus, this isn't about our marriage. This is about documented violations of workplace conduct policies that create liability for Henderson and Associates. Your affair with your assistant represents exactly the kind of professional misconduct that damages agency reputation and client relationships. I placed copies of security footage timestamps, documented patterns of after-hours building access, and evidence of workplace relationship violations on my desk between us. You have two options. You can resign immediately with a neutral reference that doesn't mention conduct violations, or you can face formal disciplinary proceedings that will document your policy violations in your permanent employment record. You're firing me because I cheated on you? I'm offering you the opportunity to resign because you violated company policy by conducting personal relationships on company property during company time while holding a supervisory position over the person you are having an affair with. This represents multiple violations of professional conduct standards that could result in immediate termination and negative references. Marcus stared at the evidence of his misconduct, finally understanding that his affair hadn't just destroyed his marriage, it had provided his wife with legitimate professional grounds for ending his career while advancing her own. I'll need your decision by 5 p.m. today, I concluded. HR will need to process your departure and transfer your project responsibilities to other team members who can maintain appropriate professional boundaries. Marcus had thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job, while I remained focused on smaller consulting work. Instead, his workplace misconduct had just made me his boss and given me professional authority to ensure he faced appropriate consequences for violating policies that protected both the company and its employees. Marcus submitted his resignation at 4:47 p.m. that afternoon, accompanied by a formal letter acknowledging policy violations and requesting confidential handling of his departure. By 5 p.m., I was meeting with Henderson's leadership team to discuss reassigning his project portfolio and implementing new professional conduct training for all staff members. Denise, your handling of this situation demonstrates exactly the kind of leadership we need, Sarah Henderson acknowledged during our emergency session. Marcus's conduct violations could have created serious liability issues if they hadn't been addressed immediately and professionally. Within a week, I'd restructured Henderson's project management systems, implemented new accountability measures, and begun recruiting team members who shared my vision for authentic community engagement rather than superficial corporate messaging. The Samsung follow-up campaign that Marcus had been developing was redesigned using community-centered strategies that generated better client response and authentic engagement than anything Henderson had produced in years. My first-month performance reviews exceeded every expectation Sarah Henderson had outlined during my interview process. But the most satisfying element wasn't just the career advancement. It was watching how workplace dynamics improved once professional conduct standards were consistently enforced rather than selectively ignored based on personal relationships and workplace favoritism. Jasmine Collins, Marcus's former assistant, was reassigned to projects that utilized her administrative skills without the complications of inappropriate supervisor relationships. She actually thrived in the new environment where professional boundaries were clearly defined and consistently maintained. Ms. Washington, I want to thank you for handling the situation professionally. I was uncomfortable with how things had developed with Mr. Washington, but I didn't know how to address it without risking my job. Jasmine, part of my role is ensuring that all employees can work in an environment free from inappropriate conduct or pressure. If you ever face similar situations in the future, please know that reporting them is protected and encouraged. 6 months later, Henderson and Associates had secured 4 major new clients who specifically sought our expertise in culturally competent communications and authentic community engagement. My strategic vision had transformed the agency from a struggling firm losing clients to a growing organization that specialized in exactly the kind of work I'd been developing through 8 years of nonprofit consulting. I'd also been invited to speak at industry conferences about ethical leadership in marketing communications and building authentic community partnerships, sharing expertise that positioned Henderson as a thought leader in responsible marketing practices. The divorce proceedings with Marcus were straightforward since his affair was documented, and his resignation had eliminated any financial entanglement through shared employment. His new job at a smaller agency paid significantly less and provided none of the prestige he'd enjoyed at Henderson. I'd also started dating again, specifically other professionals who understood the importance of workplace integrity and who respected partners with career ambitions and leadership capabilities, rather than viewing professional success as threatening to their ego or masculine identity. I have to ask, David Chen had said during dinner at a restaurant I could easily afford with my creative director's salary, how did you manage to turn your husband's affair into the best career opportunity of your life? I realized that Marcus's workplace misconduct wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was evidence of poor professional judgment that created opportunities for someone with superior strategic thinking and ethical leadership capabilities. 2 years after catching Marcus cheating at his job and applying to become his boss, I was sitting in Henderson and Associates' boardroom reviewing our acquisition offer from a major advertising conglomerate that wanted to purchase our expertise in authentic community engagement and ethical marketing practices. Under my leadership, Henderson had grown from a struggling agency losing clients to the most sought-after communications firm in the Southeast, specializing in campaigns that built genuine community relationships while achieving exceptional results for corporate clients who valued social responsibility alongside profit margins. Marcus had found employment with a smaller marketing firm where his project management skills were adequate for less complex campaigns, though his career advancement had been permanently limited by his resignation from Henderson under conduct violation circumstances that followed him through industry networking. He'd also remarried, a woman who worked in real estate and apparently shared his views about appropriate workplace boundaries and professional conduct. Their relationship seemed to function well within traditional dynamics where neither partner held professional authority over the other. My transformation of Henderson and Associates had become a case study taught in business schools about ethical leadership and strategic crisis management. My approach to turning workplace conduct violations into opportunities for organizational improvement had influenced industry standards for professional behavior and accountability. The most unexpected outcome had been the relationship that developed between Jasmine and me. She'd completed her marketing degree while working at Henderson and had become one of our most effective account coordinators, specializing in campaigns for women-owned businesses and community organizations. Ms. Washington, I want you to know that your leadership taught me what professional respect actually looks like, Jasmine had told me during her recent performance review. Before you arrived, I didn't understand that workplace relationships should be based on competence and mutual respect rather than power imbalances and personal manipulation. The acquisition offer we were reviewing would make me a millionaire while establishing Henderson as the foundation for a new division focused on ethical marketing and authentic community engagement. My expertise in turning challenges into opportunities had created wealth and professional influence that exceeded anything Marcus had achieved during his career at the agency. Marcus had thought he could conduct his affair at his prestigious job while I remained focused on smaller consulting work. Instead, His workplace misconduct had provided me with the perfect opportunity to demonstrate what happened when superior strategic thinking met professional authority and ethical leadership. I'd caught my husband cheating at his job, so I'd applied to be his new boss. By the time he realized what had happened, I was already transforming his workplace into something better than anything he could have built through corner cutting and policy violations. Sometimes the best revenge isn't personal, it's professional. It's using someone's misconduct as a stepping stone to achieve exactly the kind of success they never had the vision or integrity to pursue themselves. Marcus had bet against his wife's professional capabilities while violating workplace conduct standards. I'd used his poor judgment to build an empire that demonstrated the difference between real leadership and mere position holding. And the most beautiful part? I'd done it all through legitimate professional excellence rather than misconduct, policy violations, or ethical shortcuts. Some people build careers through competence. Others destroy them through stupidity. Marcus had chosen his approach. I'd chosen mine.